This is probably the lifeblood, an occupation that keeps us alive, keeps our system, but unfortunately much less visible, and we, in our institutionalized systems, we don't work towards that. But one more, we do have these serious losses, right? In the developing world, we have what we call post-harvest losses. In the developed world, we have what is called post-purchase losses. We lose things once you put in the fridge. We lose things once you put in the deep freezer. Because we buy bulk buying, we buy all sorts of things, we forget, and then we destroy them. So post-purchase, probably in a current economic way, is not that, I mean, it's a problem anyway from a resource point, and definitely from a sustainable point of view. But from a developing country point of view, if you look at these numbers, and what is the sensitive numbers, 30 to 50 and 57%, the first should relate to our post-harvest losses across few sectors, from the fruits and vegetables to the fish, and then the paddy and so on. We have probably these numbers. And what I understand is that these numbers have been like that for from since independence. That we have not made a dent in these numbers significantly. And one more serious point as a result probably is our per capita expenditure on food is around 57% if you get the hearty data. Hector Bagadoo Research Institute data, they should come up with the cost of living, and they have this basket and come up with. So what they say probably is 57. You may have a better value. But the point is 57% in that percent. If we were at 70s, now it's probably what they say is 57. But if you compare to a country like United States or Europe, the percentage that they place on food is like 13% to 15%. It's a huge difference from 57% to a 13%. And I always say that's why they travel and we wait for them at the airport, right, holding king coconut. Not a good thing, right? And so if I to take this situation of a challenge, this is an immense challenge from a food point, not a difficult thing. I don't believe it's difficult because food processing wise. It's just that we have not set our minds, and none of our political manifestos ever say about bringing down the food processing loss. Is not in the equation. But the point is, if we bring down this loss, we equally bring down this per capita consumption figure. We can easily bring down, and we should bring that down to a reasonable value, and that should be to me a KPI, right? So because then you free money for the rest of the activities. Today we don't have money for the rest of the activities. Remember, 57% is an average. So some actually pay all their money for that food and drink. And when you don't get the food, you spend on unnecessary drink the rest of the money. And you get into double trouble, right? But our food and drink industry gives that. Anyway, so this is something to me a serious KPI for Sri Lanka. We have endured for 71 years, and we continue to talk about a post-harvest loss. And that shows a deficiency in our processing. That shows a deficiency in our supply chain. And something that we should work on, and as a faculty on. And I keep on telling our students also, from food processing point, this factor is not an excuse, and we should not be happy about this at all. So as from a farmer's point, we have endured with the disease across 13 districts where we still do not know the reason, right? And we still do not understand the reason. And we have about 33 hypotheses. We are just publishing that small paper from the collection from Costi. 33 hypotheses for the CKDU, chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology. 13 districts, earlier it was 12, now speak about 13. But then we spoke of the drink part, and we most believe that it's to be water related. But then we have been supplying good drink, water quality. But then to look at, we have been giving RO systems. And RO systems, if somebody's walked into most of these places, except from in few places where remineralization is taking place, so closer examination of those RO systems indicate that we are not doing something right there either. Though it appears that from a stage 2, stage 3 progression, things seems to have stabilized when you're doing it properly. Because for one thing, they now appreciate the taste better, because hardness is removed, and so the water quality, taste and so on is better. And there will be a lot of talk about water is the reason. So they were depriving themselves of water, now they have access to water, so they are taking that water even though it's expensive. 3 rupees a litre and so on, varies to 4 and sometimes to 2. But you walk into that place and find, and if you are looking at the filtration systems, they put the retentate back onto the ground. They take the tube well water, they put the retentate on the ground. If there is so much of heavy metal, arsenic, cadmium and stuff, you take it from a tube well, put the retentate back on the ground, and an RO system normally have a 40%, about 45% water retentate, right? So the rest is what's get filtered. So you should not be doing that. And if you don't reamine, you have a long-term issue of the body loses minerals by taking distilled water. So we have traded off from something probably not quite right. And again, from a food and drink scenario, something we should be looking at. Not happily accepting the RO. So I think we have been, scientifically, we have not delivered the right answer. And we have endured 25 years with a disease which we cannot still scientifically say what's the answer is, what's the reason is. That is, to me, is also not quite agreeable. Because if you go back in history, if you look at Japan, when the Minamata disease was there, which is related to food, they solved it in very quick time, identified it as a mercury, identified the neurological effects of that, and they solved it, and they identified, and not only that, they have actually won in the international stage with an international Minamata convention with banning mercury. So it's been such a drive, that passion for identifying the problem, because you eat fish and you die, that was the Minamata people faced, and to identify the biomagnification, bioaccumulation, the reason of industry things starting on the food chain, all sorts of things were identified. So we have not done this. So it's serious that why we are failing in our research. Purposeful, impactful research has to happen, and answers should be delivered. So when you look at food and we talk of sustainability, now this is an example of a book called Hungry World. Some of you may have seen this, right, where they actually went, and a husband and wife combination. They went around the world with many countries and photographing what the people are eating. A normal, ordinary family, how much they eat per week. So this is what the consumption in Germany. I only take 2 pictures. So this is what is very evident is the spread, the variety, and the packaging present along with the food, and the amount of value they spent, about $500 a week. Still remember that value is about 17% in EU for the per capita on food. So that is for 4 people. So you have to take it by divide. But you go into an African continent, similar journey at the same time period in Chad. This is what they were having. $1.23 per week. The water had been given by Oxfam as per that book. So they have received it free. And so almost a commodity, not processed. But I'm not saying process has to be the way, right? No way I'm saying that. But then you have a trade-off for the variety and so on. But this is the scenario of the world, right? 2 different, same world, 2 countries, 2 societies, 2 different systems. And food is vital for life, right? You are what you eat. And you may find in EU, after eating such a lot, they spend less on food and spend more on medicine. That's a counterproductive scenario that has realized, but you analyze the figures, you find they spend on more on the drugs. Anyway, now today we talk about nutrigenomics and all the subjects, so there's a lot of learning to be taken. But this is a disparity that exists. And with this world, if you are given a choice, we all switch for this. Right? We all switch for this. We are not going to go to Chad. We will switch to this climate. So what is interesting is, and this topic of sustainable food processing or the availability is, we do have the Malthus who came up in the early century, in the 18th century, came up with this concept because he was just thinking, what you can grow on land is a linear thing. You have to stop at some point in the yield increase. He was not having access to the technology of today. He was just being creative, thinking, but the human numbers are exponential. So you have a linear equation and an exponential equation, and they had to intersect at some point, and beyond that means we have more humans than what we have food. So very logical Malthusian concept, which the green agriculture, green revolution, put definitely a stop to that point, that it didn't happen in that year. But the point is, we may have just merely postponed that point. Not just because it didn't happen that, and because we came up with technology, so we need to keep on coming up with something different in pushing this Malthusian boundary condition, right? So it's important, but today we have faced with this again. If you look at the UN projections, by year 2030, we have to have 50% more energy, 50% more food, and 30% more water in a 10 years time. And it's very interesting when you talk about 9 billion by 2050, they speak of that we may have to grow all the food that we have grown in the last 10,000 years in the next 2 decades to meet the needs of this growing population. Remember, when we started year 2000, we were at 6 billion. 2011, we went to the 7 billion. So we are adding billions, right? And adding billions very easily. But the point is, the resources are finite. The whole global, the 10% is agricultural land, productive land, and that is putting a challenge because no more land will be available and you have to do differently. So we talk about being sustainable. It perhaps maybe we have to be thinking, we just probably cannot do the system, the food system, the agriculture system as we are used to. We may have to come up with a different way if we have to think and feed and ensure the quality of life that we all talk about. And also addressing this inequality. Remember, Sri Lanka has never addressed the Gini coefficient. Again, in 71 years, Gini coefficient has only got worsened, not reduced. So our per capita may have gone up. We may be on the GDP at the higher income bracket country, upper middle income country. But the point is, the reality in economic terms is the Gini coefficient, which is the spread, has not changed, or rather got worsened with time, and for the past 70 years. So we, from a researcher, science and so on, has these answers to change. So it's up to us to understand and what we have to do. More so in this case, we have to address this 50-50-30 more in a situation where there's a serious environmental constraint. Because whatever we do, we have to ensure that the temperature of this earth is not going to go up by 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that's a huge pressure. So we don't have the same conventional 1960s, 70s pathway available. That's another big change. So you have to invent, how do we give this extra? We can't go on doing what we have been doing. And we remember we have neglected the soil microorganisms throwing out with our nitrogenous fertilizer, the greenhouse gases. There is no international limit on that. The nitrous oxides going out with the GHG gas has not been curtailed, right? And when one country decided to curtail that in New Zealand with DCD, we know the kind of repercussions that were in the market because kind of the way the interpretations went. And the New Zealand attempt for this DCD was to control nitrogen emissions as GHGs from their country because there's an international sign-on to ensure that we actually reduce our greenhouse gas overall, and that was one of the attempts. Anyway, so we have this constraint. So world actually witnessed in 2013, in the May 10th, this value, 400 ppm of carbon dioxide. World observed this moving past on this particular day. In the northern hemisphere, you have this lab in Moa Loa in Hawaiian Islands. So they observed. And what is interesting is, this value last seen on this world was about 3 million years ago, when we were not there. Because we as human beings, Homo sapiens with agriculture man, it's about 10,000 years. So long way before us were this last seen this 400 ppm. So our textbooks still speak of 0.3%, 0.03% CO2. But now that's long gone. It's now 0.04+%. Right? So we had to rewrite the O-level textbooks and so on in a way. And so it's important to see we are now treading on a carbon dioxide percentage that not seen by a human being before. And we have been responsible for this value for all the last few years, maybe the 100 years. So if you go into co2now.earth, so it's a website with the .earth. So the value on last November 26th was like 410.67. Right? So it's slowly but steadily climbing. And anyone doing climate science may say that we had to be worried around 425 and so on. What the science doesn't tell is the tipping point. But climate scientists believe it may be about 410, 450, 475 or 420 was also at one point was discussed. But we are very closer to that now. You can see the global worst has been 415. Again the same year, 2019. So this year has seen the highest values. They are slowly climbing up. And we have not factored that into our plans. So we are seriously constrained. And that's why the nature signals are very serious. Right? Today as we speak, we have floods on one side, but we have been experiencing floods and drought, but not been, like for those who face, but we have seen some extreme conditions in the world. So we had the worst floods we have recorded coming from like Venice, a city anyway with water, but the floods are there now, and people killed. And we have one of the worst fires in Australia, and before the fire season, before the usual fire season. And Australia is a country where it's in the front line of the climate change, right? So, so they are feeling very seriously threatened. So we just do not have access to pathways that was there in the beginning. So really we need to be innovative. So there's real scope for research, where we are looking at the question of very existence, right? So we have seen these fires now. The Sydney pictures are not very good to look at. And how many lives are shortened by the inhalation of the fumes and the smoke and the stuff, because they have to continuously breathe that smoke. And what we say today with the WHO values is, a child born today, because of the average air pollution that is there, that you can take an year out of that child straight away, right? What you can is you have to reduce by 1 year. Due to pollution, specifically to air pollution, you are reducing 1 year of your life. So we see examples like this. This is not a way to develop, right? We have seen the examples of 4,000 bottles of fresh air delivered from Canada to China for the Chinese to breathe. Now how long you can go on breathing, and how long can you have this type of supply chains, right? So it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Recently we had the New Delhi scenario where they opened the oxygen bar, the very first oxygen bar in Delhi, New Delhi. Because they say it was like living in a gas chamber, right? So there are a lot of challenges in the 21st century, and the 10 years time period, we have to think. We just are not understanding the gravity of some of those things. It's not a thing to get worried, but it's a thing to get energized to do the right thing, to do things in areas that matter. And I will touch on that in the last few slides. So there are a lot of challenges in meeting the nutrition needs in a world where the population is growing. That doesn't mean that just eating is fine. In Sri Lanka, we have our mortality rates low. We have one of the best examples of child delivery. But then after that, the child nutrition, our numbers are not very good. The stunting and wasting is not very good numbers to look at. So for Sri Lanka to have good delivery and then putting the child in jeopardy is not a good thing, right? We hear more about the deaths we don't hear more about the nutritional deficits. So that's something very serious, right? Because when you are nutritionally deficient, your IQ is going to down and all sorts of other issues happen. And that is the future is weakened from day one. And we can't afford to have a population that is growing weaker by the day, mentally as well as intellectually, right? So it's not a good thing. So there's this so we need to think more the nutritional security while we address food security. So natural resource base is definitely fragile and limited. We know that. As I said, about 10% agricultural land. And we have been having unsustainable production. If you look at the German picture and the Chad picture, we understand either one is not sufficient to sustain, the other one may be excessive to sustain. So which is again an unsustainable thing. But we can't limit people. Everybody has to understand how do we limit ourselves while thinking about the rest. So that's a very big challenge. It's not about law. You cannot do these things by telling it by, okay, just do it like this. No way. But we have to understand what we are in for and what we have to do. The gradual changing of ourselves in adjusting to the times, but we do not just sacrifice our values. No, we sacrifice what we should be doing, quality of life. But we have to tread a different path. So these are the challenges of the 21st. So that's why we talk about the sustainable goals. 17 sustainable development goals. And it's 10 more years to go, right? So no hunger, good health, responsible consumption, all parts of it. And that's very important. It's all connected to food. So instead of medicine, the food has to be the way forward, because you are what you eat. And food has to be special. And we have to think in that term, right? Today we have all the opportunities on that. So we have to be a part of the solution. The researcher has to be a part of the solution. Sri Lankan researcher has to be the part of the research solution for Sri Lanka. We have been ignoring our problems. We are so happy sometimes selling something to the outside and for that dollar, right? But we forget who we have our own, the people. So that is the food waste we need to address seriously. How do you change this? Then stunting and wasting I mentioned, the malnutrition as a result, and the different health issues that comes. Our diet, if you are sometimes listening to the some of the medical experts from diabetes and from area, it's very worrying, right? Diabetes prevalence is coming up to the average age of 20, and it's not a good thing. The NCDs are serious, and when we sometimes see the rice that we eat, the quantity, and I think there was a medical report, research report which on CKDU talks about the values are okay, but because we eat too much in some areas, some situations, the toxicity is reached as a result of the dose, not the value, right? So the concentration is acceptable, but with that concentration, if you eat too much, you exceed your daily value, and then you continue to do that, you get into health issue. So it's a case of value being right, but what you are doing is not right. And there's an interesting hypothesis that has come for CKDU, a very recent publication. Anyway, to me, we want to be technology leaders as well. We need to get into the technology. And I think we have avoided technology in our food system for some time. And it's important we do that. We don't see a cold chain. We don't see processing. We sometimes shun that, but that doesn't mean that should be avoided. So there are these food mega trends in the world, right, in food and nutrition. So health has been a very important area today. The nutraceutical production is a growing thing. Why worry about pharma? Getting a drug through the sequence of operations of stage 1 to stage 3 clinical trials, etc. is an enormously costly task. But getting a nutraceutical is not a problem. So you have a finer path, and it's better to eat something and be healthy than thinking I take a load of pills around me, right? So we too much concentrate on the pharma side when we should be working on the nutri side. And Sri Lanka has so much of a rich resource to do, right? So Murunga has been identified superfood. But we await for somebody else to tell Murunga is a superfood, right? Pallapata has happened, right? Now we go all after the Vallapatta, right? So we don't know what part of the tree is important, right? So that is the point. So that is not right. So it's important we address the health part, and there's a very strong necessity for nutraceutical development. And then safety is very important. We need to ensure security, food security. We don't run food banks in Sri Lanka. We don't run a food reserve in Sri Lanka. We still don't run a food reserve, right? So, and then we can have these are global or more, let's say, Western developed. So anyway, some of these things are relevant. So the individualism, the price, the environment, the convenience, and so on. So very important for us to think that these are trends, and a lot of areas that we can play on. So to me, because of the environmental issue, technically, for sustainability, we argue about an economy, right? We argue whether it's a socialist economy, the capitalist economy, non-aligned, market economy, liberal, and so on. But I think today, we all probably have to work on one economy, which is the most scientifically the right one, the circular economy. So the rest are like political ideologies, but this is what the reality, probably the system needs. We just cannot throw away resources. The way we do it, we extract resources, produce things, throw them away. And there's a lot of waste. What we need to do is, we need to mimic the nature, because to a forest, leafy matter is not a waste. That's my food for the next generation. So our society has moved away from nature. Now it's time to mimic, because nature is revolting finally against, because we have been trying to be so smart, but it's not going to work in that way. Now we have come to realize it's better to mimic this. Millions of years of evolution is embedded in nature. Whereas we have got these 200 years of some ideas and trying to say we can beat everything. While we can be that smart, but I think we need to understand, we should not forget this evolutionary learning that is giving to us. So circular economy is based on nature. The industrial ecology is based on natural ecology. And this is what we want to try to put in an ecology system into the industry. And with that you can do sustainability, right? So we today, even the World Bank, if you go and look at this, the little green data book, just download, it gives some very interesting things. And it gives, interestingly, for the value of honeybees and for their pollination service. Bees do not know that they have been valued at $153 billion. No, they are going to go on strike, no, they are going to get an increment. But now we have realized that they are doing a yeoman service for our food system and the agriculture and all that. The pollination is so critical. So when you have cellular phones, cellular masts, and then the bees are disappearing, today we talk about growing bees in urban systems to support somehow understanding the value of pollination. And sometimes in the technology world, pollination we thought we can do it by ourselves. But now we come to understand, no, we'll allow it the way it works and then make the best of it and respect each and every part of the natural system. So today the World Bank gives a value. Every year they now value these things, right? So it's interesting to see. But that means they want that to be brought into the economy. But we are not incorporated that into the economy. So in food systems there have been a lot of innovations. So we have now biotechnology, we have nanotechnology, and we have bio-nanotechnology, and we have nanobiotechnology. We have two different areas under this, nanobio and bio-nano. So there are interesting things, and can we use these things for the next, with sustainability in mind? Because nanotechnology learns a lot from nature. You don't want to go beyond, but you may go sometimes with metamaterials and things like that. But we have done a lot in food. Food has been a very central thing. I mean, humble yogurt making gave the idea for the CRISPR technology, right? CRISPR gene Cas9, technology came from the yogurt side. So it's interesting to see. The Henry Ford was benefited from the food industry. The Japanese lean manufacturing was by an observation of a marketplace in US, a supermarket place, how the food comes to the shelf. Right? So interestingly, food has seriously served a lot of economic things. So it's time to get food really into that point. So when you engage in food processing and food systems, There's so much. Because for one thing, we fulfill the need of the human beings and the rest as well. Right? So we can see a lot of examples, but unfortunately, we have not created the economy for that. Now, for examples, I take Ajinomoto. Right? So these are early food example of food biotechnology. But if you take the current Ajinomoto in revenue, it's like 1/10 of the Sri Lankan economy. $11 billion is their revenue. We are on $80 billion. All the time what we have been doing, we have only been able to gather $80 billion. By selling Ajinomoto, they have got into that $10 billion. So the way we sprinkle Ajinomoto, also no wonder that they get the billions, right? Because we sprinkle to riberry. So this is one of those things. But we don't produce. It comes from sugar cane, right? We don't produce. We don't have that manufacturing mindset. The animal feed those amino acids, right? That glutamicum is a workhorse in amino acids. A long time back, 1959. We just don't produce any of that. We look at a subsidy for the animal feed. We don't look at the production, right? So in the biotechnology, the humble request was by JBS Haldane was, why do you want to do it yourself when a bug can do it for you? That's the basic premise of biotechnology, right? So we can go back and get the microorganisms to work for you, and you sit back and relax and give carbon dioxide or whatever the substrate, the environment to that person, the bug. So it's very important for us to understand from the nature part. And today we have all the opportunities, right? If you have the lactose intolerance, there will be an enzyme for us to do the lactase, to break down the lactose, so I can still go and drink milk. If I want my chocolate to be, like the sweetening to be different, I may have invertase to get my sugar from glucose to the sucrose and then ensure that I use less and get it. Today maybe having stevia for the different reason, for that from a natural sweetener point of view. So there are a lot of options. But these things has to go hand in hand and ensure that we have an industry. That industry is a vital missing point in Sri Lanka. The food industry has to come seriously. And it has to be a good food industry. Not a fast food, a killer industry. Right? So the food supply chain today is actually extended from. So the first target is we must reduce our waste. But the second target is we have an extended thing to up to our intestines. And even to the constipation, right? Even that is managed by food. So if you manage today the understanding is if you manage your small intestines better, you manage your life better. Because that gut appears to be dictating a lot of things, even up to the brain. So there is a gut-brain connection. So people do a lot of studies today, right? And come up with bacteria and the good bacteria to see what you should be taking on. So that's why we have prebiotics and probiotics as a very serious area. And there must be so much of food in our system that we can work on, rather than only looking at from what is being said by the outside. I always think that when the British came in here, that you had a situation of, the British came and they were only exposed to one fruit, which is apple. But when they say so many fruits like here, all things became apples, right? So the pineapple, the wood apple, the custard apple, it is all apple for them because they were not identifying any other additional stuff. Only mango was different because they found mango in India and there was a name there and main name here. So there's so much. If you go back look at the apple type names in English, there's so many fruits with apple in Sri Lanka. So we have so much of opportunities that probably we have not gone into analyze. I remember this case, the Yakult, a probiotic drink that is done by Shiroda in Japan. And he spent this good part of his initial life in identifying this gut bacteria. So today you have this Lactobacillus Shiroda, and you have this. And he collects the global poop. He gets the number 2 from most of the countries and do the gut microbiome and understand what is missing and what is good and whether your gut bacterial thing. So we can use our genomics and use your sequencing. And you have this now RNA sequencing which enables you to do without culturing. So all that biotechnology knowledge will be there so we need to combine our classical food with the emerging technologies and work on it. And, so we should be able to do things of our own and maybe find in our own systems, because microorganisms are, it's a fantastic resource. We probably know very little still about what's there out there. And so Shiroda is a very good example of someone spending his lifetime and now getting up an international product and controlling market and also delivering health, because that's food with health benefit. So it's important. But maybe those who are into a little bit more technology and understanding that there is this land limitation, we can also envisage a post-animal bioeconomy and definitely a knowledge-based bioeconomy, right? So the idea is that we don't have land anymore, so we just can't do that linear extrapolation. You have to go either vertical or you have to do intense or do differently. So today you have, okay, it looks very bad from a classical point from nature, but can we have the milk without cows? Can we have the eggs without chickens? Right? When you understand the milk is on that creamy taste and all that is because of that biochemical composition, and understand the proteins in the egg yolk and so on, so why not you use the old workhorse in food biotechnology, the yeast. And people talk about putting chunks of genes into the yeast and using the fermenters and growing up, having milk as well as eggs. So we have seen this example when about 2013, when a Dutch scientist came up with the first factory produced or the produced hamburger, the beef burger, the burger. And that was meat, but not used by killing an animal. So you take the muscle stem cells of an animal and grow the muscle stem cells, and then you came up with this product. So that was meat technically, but it at the time cost, the first one was $325,000. So you keep the hamburger and worship it rather than eat it. But today the costs are different. I remember the very first webinar by our Institute of Chemical Engineers on this. But today the costs have come down. It depends on the production. But maybe the post-animal world, because we just can't go on in this. Remember when Chinese and the Indian economies became like better income, we had a food crisis in 2008, 2007. There was a food crisis in the world because soybean was being going around from Brazil and Chinese were eating meat. So those who were vegetarian, only on vegetable diets were suddenly getting into meat, and they had to be fed with a lot of vegetable stuff, cereals. So the prices went up seriously, right? So it was interesting. So we really have to think. So finally, the last few words on research. Whenever you do a research, and I would encourage you to check this out for yourself, but don't get discouraged, or you just get the value of what I'm saying and measure yourself, right? There are two ways you can analyze, and I'll put so the one is the knowledge axis, and the other one is the impact axis in whatever you do. And as researchers, we must understand these two. Am I adding to knowledge, or what I'm doing is adding to an impact? So if I use the knowledge and ensure that Sri Lanka gets into that immediately by this application, I can reduce post-harvest losses by 10%. It's a very impactful thing. It may be using the same knowledge, right? So you have this objective. So value or look at what you have done in terms of knowledge and the impact, and measure it with a dispassionate view. So don't get either encouraged or discouraged, but just with a dispassionate view on what you have done. Because in research, we can all think ourselves into these 4 quadrants. And these 4 quadrants is actually the y-axis is like the impact, and the x-axis is like knowledge, right? So in this you can see 3 phases, though 4 quadrants are there. So the first quadrant, the top one is like the bow quadrant, where you will be adding to knowledge. In this the y-axis knowledge, right? The impact is the x-axis here. So the bow quadrant, you may find where's the address of the electron, right? Address of the electrons may be very valuable from science, but useless from society. But nevertheless, it's important to get into the basics of what's happening. So that pure science part. So that's what you call, if you do that in the both quadrant. But if you go into the genus quadrant, you suddenly come out with like vaccination. I'm preventing disease. But I'm also adding to science that you can prevent disease by vaccination. So there's a huge knowledge addition as well as an impact. So we know the power of vaccination. So that is your Jenner quadrant, right? And one below is the type of engineering, the Edison quadrant. The Edison uses whatever the knowledge available, come up with things very useful to the society, right? So that impact. So that's an Edison. But what is this first quadrant? You neither add to knowledge, you neither add to impact. So we should never do research which we know the answer from day one. We should never do research where we know that I can safely complete within 1 month or 3 months and I can graduate. Because I have no problem whatsoever because I'm not taking a challenge. So what I'm driving is, it's important if you want to change Sri Lanka and put an institution on the map, we should think about knowledge addition and the impact part. So you can plug your titles, what you have done, into this 2x2 matrix and to see where you are. But the idea is not to get discouraged, as I said, the next time round to go on. But some universities, not here, do actually push. Nobody, even an undergraduate, cannot do a project unless there is something meaningful that can come out of it. But trying to do that, even if you fail to deliver an answer, you will be respected for that trying, because you have still tried, and somebody else following you may not do the same things. And you yourself would have learned something from by doing that failure. So we don't like failures. So we don't try out these new routes, right? So it's really important, if you have to be successful in research and to change, we need to address this. So please think about this 2x2 matrix. And it's just to think on evaluation. And I think this is a very powerful thing just to think, because this can leverage our institutions to a very different level if we continue. Remember, we have lots of students, we have a lot of research students, and you need to do that. And we need to be bold in that. Respect failure, encourage failure, but not the same failure every day, right? But different types of failure, but ask you to select something. So it's like doing something novel, right? Turning the generator waste into prebiotics or probiotics. So this is an example from blue economy, right? I take the carbon dioxide emissions from a generator or a power station and turn that and grow algae or something, and then extract the nutrients and then pay nutraceuticals or even biofuels. You can think of very concord different challenges, and then that will make an impact. So we have these type of things. If you want technology, we have the world's 3D printed food. So you can 3D print. 3D printers are cheap. Hydrocolloids will be studied in food chemistry. Why don't you put hydrocolloids and then to come out with a dessert by a 3D printer? Maybe just you may get something interesting. Of course, that has been done. So we need to add to the wealth of the country by doing pioneering research. And don't forget the patents, intellectual property. And before you say something, also check whether it's patentable. Just don't write into a paper. There's something just to be think. Because if you're taking a pioneering project, there's almost a chance that something good is there. But if you know you're doing a well-trodden path, then no chance of a patency. That also you know, right? So, but that adds real wealth to Sri Lanka. So my last slide, and I always put that when I put in the students, is something I saw in the Hampasala in a Kota Junction, right? So it said that Tama Upamba Ratu Danene Ratu Sevya Kalot Pamani. That means the country will know that you were in this country if you have done something that the country feels that you have contributed. If you have contributed to your own self, the country sees nothing. So there has to be that selflessness also. While you grow, you must get the economy to grow. And you have to do that by selecting problems that are much of value. Thank you very much. And all the best for the research.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable insights on sustainable food consumption and leading us to think in a different way. So now I would like to invite Professor Ajit Jayveera, Dean of the Faculty, to present the token of appreciation for our keynote speaker, Professor Ajit D. Alvis. Thank you very much, sir, for your enormous support. Moving forward, we have a very unique culture in our UReS. Each year we appreciate a young inventor at our UReS by awarding the Best School Inventor of the Year. So I would like to invite Dr. Krishanti Premaratne to introduce the Best School Inventor selected for the year 2018.
Good morning. The keynote speaker, Professor Ajit D. Alvis, Dean, heads of the departments, professors, all academic staff members, and non-academic staff members, my dear students. It's in line with our keynote speaker's message. I would like to emphasize that innovation is a key determinant for the economic growth and social welfare of a country. So with great pleasure, I would like to introduce the Best School Inventor 2018. UReS 2019 marks awarding of the Best School Inventor for the third time. This is done with the sole intention of appreciating our young school inventors. This year, Ms. Tarushi Vidushika Rajapaksha Patiratna from Sumanabalika Vidyalaya Ratnapura has been selected as the Best School Inventor for her outstanding innovations and also contributions to the field of science. Two of her innovations, a clock that shows inauspicious time and an environmental friendly easy food pack, have won 2 gold medals at the Sahasak Nimayum 2018, the National Invention Exhibition organized by the Sri Lanka Inventors Commission. Her remarkable innovation, the Easy Food Pack, can be a replacement for the lunch sheets which we usually use in our day-to-day life. And also, it can be a solution for this plastic waste, which is one of the major environmental issues that we face today in our country. Also, the Lions Club International District 306A1 has presented Ms. Tarushi with the Most Outstanding Citizen Award under their slogan, Exceptional Contribution to the Society in 2019, and she is the youngest individual to receive this prestigious award so far. 2 of her inventions have been selected to be present at the Geneva International Competition in 2019. Tarushi has proven that talent can be found at any school at any age. To tell you all that she has been innovated 17 different products so far. She's just an A-level student. She was able to achieve this great success in a way, it's in her genes, because his father has also innovated more than 50 different products. And also, she's getting a lot of support and guidance from her school, which is the Sumanabalika Vidyalaya Ratnapura. Her goal is to come up with many more inventions that can create a better life for the society and bring pride to the motherland. With all these achievements and her intentions, I hope that you all agree with me that she is the best suitable candidate to be awarded with the Best School Inventor Award, which is presented by the Faculty of Livestock, Fisheries and Nutrition. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome onto the stage Ms. Tarushi Vidushika Rajapaksha Patiratna, the Best School Inventor 2019, to share her experience with us.
Good morning, all of you. I am Tarushi Vidushika Rajapaksha from Sumanabalika Vidyalaya Ratnapura. I am 19 years old student. I did my A-level in art stream. but I also wanted to invention. I have done 17 invention. Rahu time indicator clock is my first invention, and easy food packet, modifier motor bicycle, modifier air conditioner, modifier wheelbarrow, and safety hammer, water filter, water pump controlling device, and so much more inventions. Easy food packet. This is my popular invention. This is a solution for the use of lunch sheet. It's an eco-friendly product. It is a reusable and eco-friendly. The fabric was used to create this. This product has two main parts. This is the invention. Two main parts in this invention. They are dining area and the outer cover. The dining area is a circle. We can put it on any food, biscuit or sweets or anyone. Safely carried it, and next to the into the outer envelope. ලංකාවේ දිනකට ලන්ච් ෂීට් මිලියන 200ක් විතර පාවිච්චි කරන ලංකාවේ දවසකට විතරක්. එතකොට ලෝකෙම ගත්තොත් ඒක ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඒ කියන්නේ ලොකු ගාණක්. එතකොට මේක මම ටාකට් කරලා තියෙනවා මේ මාස 3ක්. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක මාස 3ක් විතර මේක සෝදලා නැවත පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට දැන් අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් සැලකුවොත් එක ලන්ච් ඒ කියන්නේ අපි දවසකට ලන්ච් ෂීට් සමහර විට කෑම දෙකක් තුනක් ගෙනියනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට දවසට ලන්ච් ෂීට් එහෙම ඉතින් ලක්ෂ 200ක් වෙන එක ඒක වෙන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක්. මොකද අපේ දැන් වර්තමානයේ ඒ තරමටම ලන්ච් ෂීට් භාවිතා කරනවා. එතකොට මේක මම මාස 3ක් විතර තමයි අවම ටාකට් එක. ඊට වඩා ගොඩක් කල් මේක පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් භාවිතය අනුව. එතකොට මේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි සැලකුවොත් දැන් මාස 3කට ලන්ච් එක්කෙනෙක් විතර ලන්ච් ෂීට් 90ක් පරිසරයට මුදා හරිනවා. එතකොට මේක පාවිච්චි කරොත් කවුරු හරි මාස 3කට පොළවට මුදා හැරෙන්නේ එක කොලයක් විතරයි. ඊටත් ඒක මාස 3ක් පාවිච්චි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මේක ලන්ච් ෂීට් එකට වඩා ඉක්මනට දි รา පත් වෙනවා. පිටත කවරය ඒක ලේසියෙන් දි รา පත් වෙනවා ඊට කලින් ඇතුළත කවරය මාස එකමාරක් දෙකක් යනකොට සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම දි รา පත් වෙලා ඉවරයි. එතකොට දැන් මේක භාවිතා කරාම නම් හිතනවා දැන් තියෙන ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙනවා පොලිතින් භාවිතය. ඒකට ලොකු විසඳුමක් වෙයි කියලා. මේක සහසක් නිවීම තරඟයෙන් මට රන් සම්මාන දෙකක් හිමුණා මේකත් ඇතුළුව රාහු කල්පෙන් ඔරලෝසුවටයි මේකටයි. එතකොට මේ ලංකාවෙන් රන් සම්මාන හිමුනේ 12 දෙනෙක්ට විතරයි සහසක් නිවීම තරඟයෙන්. ඒකේ හිටපු එකම ගෑන් ළමයා මම. එතකොට ඒ තේරිච්ච අයව කොරියාවේ තිබ්බා කොරියා ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් යූත් ඔලිම්පියඩ් ෆෝත් 1 කියලා කම්පිටිෂන් එකක් ඉන්ටර්නැෂනල් කම්පිටිෂන් එකක්. ඒකට අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරා ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඉන්වෙන්ෂන් කොමිෂන් එක හරහා. ඒකෙන් මට සිල්වර් මෙඩල් දෙකක් හම්බුණා මේකටයි රාහු කලපින්න ඔරලෝසුවටයි ඉන්වෙන්ෂන් දෙකටම සිල්වර් ප්‍රයිස් හම්බුණා. එතනත් ශ්‍රී ලංකන් ටීම් එකේ හිටපු එකම ඒ කියන්නේ ගෑන් ළමයා මම අනිත් ඔක්කොම බොයිස්ලා. ඇත්තටම මට සතුටුයි ලංකාවට එහෙම දෙයක් මට අරන් දෙන්න පුළුවන් වෙච්ච එක. ඒ වගේම මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මම මේක දැන්ට මාකට් එකට දාලා තියෙනවා. kapruka.com එකේ විකුණනවා. ඒ වගේම මගේ පාසලේ දැන් මේ වෙනකොට හැමෝම වගේ පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ මේක. ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ පාසල දැන් ලන්ච් ෂීට් වලින් තොරයි. ඒ වගේම රත්නපුරාවට ගොඩක් පාසල් මේක ඇනෝම් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මගේ නිර්මාණය මෙහෙම කියන්නේ රට පුරා ප්‍රචාරය වුණොත් ඇත්තටම අපිට තියෙන ලොකු පරිසර ගැටලුවක් විසඳ ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියලා. ඇත්තටම ඉස්සෙල්ලාම මම මේක ඉවෙනි විස්තෘත කරන්න ඕන මගේ තාත්තට. තාත්තා තමයි මගේ මුල් ගුරුවරයා. තාත්තාත් නිපැයුම් කරා. ඒ කියන්නේ තාත්තා කරාට පස්සේ තමයි මම ඒව කරන්න යොමු වුනේ. ඊට පස්සේ ඉතින් තාත්තට වඩා මම ගියා. ඒක ගැන තාත්තට සතුටු වෙනවා. එතකොට මගේ පාසල විදුහල්පතිතුමිය ඇතුළු ගුරු මණ්ඩලය ඇතුළු මට ගොඩක් ලොකු උදව් කරනවා. නාමල් පෙම්වලට යොමු කරනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ව හදරින් මතක් කරනවා. ඇත්තටම අද මට මේ අවස්ථාව ලබා දුන්න එක පිළිබඳ වයඹ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ සමාජික සියලු දෙනාට මම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Patharatna. You're indeed a great example for the young inventors. Now, let me invite Professor B.P.A. Jayavira, Dean of the Faculty of Livestock, Fisheries and Nutrition, to give away the award and the certificate, and Dr. Krishanti Premaratna to accompany him. Thank you all. This is the time to present the proceedings to the guests. I invite Editor-in-Chief, Dr. W.A.H. Champa, to present the proceedings. And this is the time to present the proceedings to all the heads of the departments. And also to the head of the biostatistics unit.
Thank you, Madam. Now we have come to the end of our inauguration ceremony of UReS 2019. So I would like to cordially invite Mr. Mehan Chandimal to give the vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to propose the vote of thanks at UReS 2019. First and foremost, I would like to I would like to thank Professor E.M.P. Ekanayaka, the Vice Chancellor, Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, our chief guest today. We are truly grateful for the support he extended to UReS 2019 and being here today as the chief guest to grace this event. A special note of gratitude is extended to Professor Ajit Alvis, a keynote speaker of the event, for accepting our invitation and sharing his valuable insight on a timely topic. We are sincerely thankful to Professor Ajit Jayavira, the Dean of the Faculty of Facilitating the event and encouraging us throughout this period. Thank you very much, sir, for your enormous cooperation, and we are indeed fortunate to have your guidance. I also wish to thank the academic, administrative, non-academic and supportive staff of the university for the assistance in facilitating and organizing this event. An event like this would not be a reality if it was not for the generous financial support provided by valuable sponsors. So, on behalf of the organizing committee, let me take this opportunity to thank all the sponsors of UReS 2019. UReS Symposium is the most attractive and glamorous event of the faculty calendar. It would not be possible for us to have such a memorable experience without the organizing committee. So let me thank the coordinator and the organizing committee of UReS 2019 for all the hard work they shouldered to make this event successful. Furthermore, I would like to thank the editor-in-chief and all the supervisors for guiding and supporting us in publishing our research findings. Finally, I would like to conclude by congratulating and wishing success to all my colleagues who will be showcasing their research work at UReS 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandimal. To sign the end of this ceremony, let us rise for the national anthem.
The organizing committee have a few more notices to give to all. The refreshments are ready at the second and third floor lecture rooms for all the invitees and the staff, and LT2 lecture room for all the students.
Please note that the technical sessions would be starting at 10:50 a.m. We kindly request you to be at the respective locations of the sessions on time. Please refer the program in your folder for further information on technical sessions. And there's another special notice for the presenters. Please be at your respective venue by 10:30 a.m. Thank you.